Hello. For tonight's grisly tale, I'm going to read you a story from Fearsome Tales for Fiendish Kids. These are cautionary tales that I wrote for lovers of squeam. Tonight's story is called Death by Chocolate. Why Fly's eyes are twice the size of Desperate Dan's immense cow pies is for a reason plain and clear, to keep a watch to front and rear, while supping up at supper time, like sewage workers sucking slime. Fly's eyeballs keep them on their toes, to help avoid the swatter's blows. Great brown rivers of the stuff gushed out of the stainless steel funnel and flooded the cold metal tray with a thick creamy coating of sweet temptation. The man in the white overalls lifted the tray off the bench and replaced it with an empty one before carrying the full tray over to Mildred Sachs, chief cutter-upper at the Square Bush Sou'wester chocolate factory. "So, how's it looking?" asked Mr. Squarebush of his partner. "Good, Harry, very good," smiled Mr. Sou'wester. "Sales of chocolate bunnies are up 20% on this time last year." "Well, in that case, I'd like to propose a toast," announced Mr. Squarebush, rising from his seat at the top of the boardroom table. "Gentlemen, I give you Squarebush Sou'wester bunnies. May they continue to multiply like their real cousins." The board of directors laughed at their chairman's annual quip and raised their glasses to the best Easter sales yet for Squarebush Sou'wester chocolate. Back on the factory floor, Pip Pipkin was greasing the bunny moulds for the next steaming batch of liquid chocolate when he heard a buzzing in his left ear. "Oh, buzz off!" he exclaimed, striking out with his arms in a useless attempt to bring down his airborne persecutor. But all he succeeded in doing was knocking the lever that opened the valve on the pipe that carried the chocolate from the blending vat to the moulds on the conveyor belt. Only trouble was, because Pip Pipkin was still greasing them, the moulds weren't on the conveyor belt, so there was nothing to catch the flood of chocolate as it gushed out of the vat. "What's going on?" roared the foreman, Mr. McGregor. "Turn that valve off!" Chocolate was squirting out of the nozzle like oil from a gusher, spraying the factory floor and the skidding workforce in sticky brown gunge. Pip Pipkin was trying to stem the tide by sticking his finger in the end of the pipe, but his efforts created a 20-foot-high chocolate fountain that only made matters worse. "Hey, I'm sorry, Mr. McGregor," he whimpered as his boss stormed over. "I don't know what happened. There was a fly buzzing round my ears, and I must have knocked the tap by accident." "Oh, what?" boomed Mr. McGregor. The factory floor fell silent save for one tidal roar of spurting chocolate. "A fly," whimpered Pip Pipkin shamefully. Mr. McGregor's face switched instantly from purple rage to ashen horror. "Sound the alarm!" he bellowed, closing the tap on the chocolate pipe. "Shut down all machinery! There's a fly in the factory!" A loud, piercing siren screamed through the building as the workers ran backwards and forwards like headless chickens, shouting, "We'll all lose our jobs! We'll all lose our jobs! Who let the fly in?" Mr. Squarebush heard the alarm and dropped his glass of champagne. "That's a fly," he said flatly. "Gentlemen, we have a crisis on our hands." The executives knocked knees together underneath the boardroom table, while Mr. Sou'wester pressed the button on the intercom and said sternly, "Miss Violet, call out the SWAT squad." Then he turned back to the sea of frightened faces and issued a warning. If we don't catch this chocolate fly soon, it could be curtains for Squarebush and Sou'wester." The suits with the knitted brows gasped in horror. "If this insect lays its eggs in the main chocolate tank, well, I don't have to tell you, gentlemen, we'll have to destroy every bunny in the building." For Squarebush and Sou'wester, a chocolate fly laying its eggs in their chocolate was equivalent to a dairy farmer discovering mad cow disease in his herd, or a cabinet maker detecting death watch beetle in his wood, or an ordinary man in the street finding a tapeworm in his gut. Market research proved that delicious chocolate containing dead flies was not what the public wanted. The SWAT squad scoured the factory floor with their fly swats at the ready, but they came out empty-handed. "The chocolate fly has gone, sir," said Sergeant Sweetie confidently to Mr. Squarebush. "But how can you know for sure?" worried Mr. Sou'wester. "Because we're a crack squad of professional men, highly trained in the skills of swatting and splatting, sir," replied the stiff-jawed sergeant. "It's our business to know." And with that he withdrew his men from the factory floor, and the production line of chocolate bunnies ground back into gear. "Oh, I hope he's right," muttered Mr. Sou'wester. "I wouldn't like to find a maggot in my Easter chocolate." "No," nodded Mr. Squarebush. "No, neither would I." From high up on the gantry, directly above Pipkin's position, the cunning chocolate fly dropped an egg into an unfilled bunny mould before flying out of the open window as buzzlessly as it could. The bunny containing the egg was given to a girl called Serena Slurp. Serena was a great big tub of a girl with mean little eyes and a splodge of a nose right in the middle of her chubby cheeks. She hadn't always been vast, but over the last few years she had developed a secret passion for chocolate and had taken to stashing bars all over the house so that she was never far away from a fix. Serena was a chocoholic. She needed chocolate like you or I need water to quench our thirst. She'd eat chocolate cakes and biscuits, chocolate spread sandwiches, chocolate peanuts and raisins, chocolate ice cream, and even the poor dog's choc drops when times were lean. Once she wolfed down a plateful of chocolate ants, in spite of the fact that they wouldn't stay still when she scooped them onto her fork and ran up her nose and hid in her ears. She loved her chocolate any which way, dark, white or milky, in a bar, on a stick, or licked off the back of a stranger's hand. She'd done that once to a man sitting next to her on a bus, and had received some very peculiar looks. Chocolate milkshakes, chocolate hundreds and thousands, and hot chocolate drinks, cooking chocolate, chocolate creams, chocolate sauce, and once, by accident, a chocolate laxative bar, which kept her running for the loo for a fortnight. Feeding Serena was not a problem as long as she could have chocolate on her food. Imagine eating chocolate fish and chips, or roast chocolate chicken, or even chocolate hot pot. Disgusting. But not for Serena. Chocolate was her cream dream, and she couldn't get enough of it. She had a younger sister called Ellie, a pretty little slip of a thing who never said boo to a goose. But Ellie lived in the shadow of her brutal big sister, who persecuted her from morning till night, demanding favours in exchange for not telling Mummy about Ellie's misdemeanours. Things like spilling a teaspoon of milk on the breakfast table. "Oh, whoops," said Ellie. "Oh, dear," gasped Serena cruelly. "What have you done, Ellie?" "Well, I'll clear it up." "Too late for that now. If you don't go into the larder and steal me a chocolate biscuit, I'll tell Mummy how you threw that milk on the table deliberately." "But I didn't," blubbed Ellie. "Shall we let Mummy decide?" threatened Serena. "Oh, all right then, I'll get your stupid chocolate." But if Ellie was caught, Serena would pretend she knew nothing about it. She'd shake her head disapprovingly and say in her grown-up voice, "Honestly, you should be ashamed of yourself, Ellie. Stealing biscuits from the larder when you know Mummy doesn't approve." 4 months had passed since Easter. It was August and the country was wilting from the hottest summer since records began. The town where Serena and Ellie lived was plagued by swarms of black flies which thrived in the heat, feasting like ragamuffin kings from dustbins full of bad meat and rotting vegetables, and sucking the sweat from the skin of sticky human beings. Serena and Ellie's mother bought a fly swat to do battle with the flies. Ellie thought it was grand and commandeered it for herself, wearing it through her trouser belt like a samurai's sword and using it to stalk her winged foe through the house. She had very little success, though. The flies were always too quick for her. But Ellie loved the swish and the thwack of the swat and spent most of her school holidays happily hunting. Serena, on the other hand, devoted her time to freezing bars of chocolate in the fridge. The sun was not kind to her favourite food, liquefying it into large brown puddles if she happened to leave it on a window ledge by mistake. Into the fridge she also put her chocolate Easter bunny. Ellie had eaten hers the moment she'd been given it, but Serena was one of those annoying children who save their Easter eggs to eat later. She'd wait 6 months until Ellie was nice and jealous of the egg, and then eat it in front of her slowly and deliberately, savouring every mouthful, teasing her drooling younger sister with each tantalising "No, you can't have any" lick. The summer drifted by happily enough, with both girls staying out of each other's way until the day that Ellie snapped the fly swat. She was chasing a juicy blue bottle through the sitting room when she saw a rather old and weary-looking fly limping along the back of the sofa. Here was her chance. She couldn't squash the fit ones, but a 3-legged fly was a sitting duck. She raised the swat high above her head, narrowed her eyes, and delivered a vicious blow to the fly's head that would have been fatal had not the fly lazily buzzed off just before she struck. The result of her brute force, however, was to snap the fly swat in half. Ellie gulped. She hadn't meant to do it. It was an accident. She decided it would be better to keep the breakage a secret, and was just laying the fly swat out on the coffee table, pushing the 2 ends together to make it look unbroken, when Serena walked in and caught her. "Oh dear," came the familiar scheming tones of Ellie's big sister. "What have we got here?" "Well, I didn't do it," shouted Ellie. "Yes, you did, little sister," smiled Serena, wagging her finger at Ellie. "Who's a naughty girl, then?" Ellie bit her lip. She knew what was coming next. "What do you think Mummy will say when she sees this?" said Serena, holding up the broken fly swat in both hands. "She'll be so angry." "Oh, please don't tell her," begged Ellie. "Well, I might and I might not," said Serena casually. "It depends." "Well, on what?" trembled Ellie. "On whether you'll be my slave or not." "No," protested Ellie. "I'm your sister." "Okay, then." "Mummy!" Serena shouted as loud as she could, and would have done so again had Ellie not slapped her hand over Serena's mouth. "All right, all right, all right, all right," she squealed, with tears in her eyes. "I'll be your slave." "What is it?" asked their mother, entering the sitting room through the French windows. "What do you want?" "Nothing," smiled Serena sweetly, hiding the fly swat behind her back. "I thought I saw a hornet, that's all." Her mother grunted and eyed her 2 daughters suspiciously before returning to her gardening. Ellie wanted to go with her, but Serena grabbed her arm. She had a wicked glint in her eye. "Right," she said smugly, licking her puffy lips with sadistic relish. "What shall I get my slave to do first?" The next week was pure misery for Ellie. She waited on Serena hand and foot, sitting on the loo seat to warm it up before Serena used it, folding her sister's clothes, tidying her room, running her bath, fixing the brakes on her bike, brushing her hair, spoon-feeding her Cocoa Pops at breakfast, and, of course, fetching her chocolate from the fridge. One day, after Ellie had just delivered a wheelbarrow full of Smarties to Serena's bedside, their mother caught Serena being sick in the bathroom. "Oh, I feel awful," moaned the greedy guzzler with a chocolate moustache. "Well, you've only got yourself to blame," said her mother sharply. "Your eyes are bigger than your stomach." But Serena didn't listen. She became so lazy that she lay on the sofa all day like a Roman emperor, and when Ellie stamped her foot and said she'd had enough of being a slave, Serena simply produced the broken fly swat from behind a cushion and raised her eyebrows quizzically, as if to say, "Well, shall I?" And Ellie's answer was always no. Then 2 days before they went back to school, a strange thing happened. The weather got even hotter, and all of the chocolate bars in all of the shops, in all of the towns, in all of the counties, melted. There wasn't a single chocolate bar left in the whole country. Ellie knew, because Serena had sent her out on a frantic search to find one, with strict instructions not to return until she had. Ellie had tried 54 shops before she had given up. She came home in tears because she had failed her big sister. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I did try my best, I did. Don't tell Mummy." Serena's face was black with rage. She hadn't tasted chocolate now for at least an hour. "Bring me my bunny," she growled. She'd been saving the Easter bunny for a really special occasion, but needs must when the devil drives. Her chocolate craving was like a roaring giant in her belly, demanding to be fed. "Faster!" she bawled, as Ellie ran to the fridge and whipped out her sister's fix. Serena was no longer interested in teasing Ellie with the chocolate bunny. Speed was of the essence now, to cram it down her gob as fast as she possibly could. She ripped off the cellophane wrapping with her teeth and stuffed the chocolate ears deep into her throat, tearing them off the bunny's head like a wild dog. Suddenly, Ellie noticed a small white maggot wriggling out of the bunny's chewed neck. She screamed, "Serena, stop! Look! It's a wiggly thing!" "Oh, shut up," glowered Serena. "Can't you see I'm eating?" "But there's a maggot in the bunny!" "You're just saying that so I'll give you some," leered Serena. "Well, I won't. It's mine." "But there's a Ellie gagged. Serena had just chomped through the bunny's shoulders and gulped down the maggot whole. Ellie left the room to be sick. And that was how the maggot came to be inside Serena. When it arrived in her stomach, it discovered a lake of bubbling chocolate so deep that it was able to feast for a fortnight, transforming its short squeeze-box body into that of a giant chocolate fly, which devoured its host's body from within and sucked out her brain. When Ellie went into Serena's bedroom 2 weeks later, she discovered a chocolate fly sitting up in bed staring at her. She screamed and ran away, but the fly flew out from under Serena's duvet and chased her downstairs. "Get away!" cried Ellie, picking up the broken fly swat. "Leave me alone! I shall squish you!" Then, to Ellie's surprise, the fly spoke. "It's me, Serena," it said. "Don't be frightened." "It's a trick," screamed Ellie. "You're a fly." "I'm your sister." "No, you're not. You're a monster." "Don't you recognize your own flesh and blood?" pleaded the fly. "Ellie, I am Serena. Look, My eyes are bigger than my stomach." "Yes, well, that's because you're a fly," wailed Ellie. "All flies have eyes like saucepan lids." Then she panicked and lashed out with the swat and squashed her vicious sister into a huge black mess on the carpet. "What's going on?" said Ellie's mother, appearing suddenly in the doorway. Ellie froze over the splodged corpse of the chocolate fly. "Ellie?" Ellie blinked. "I think I've just broken the fly swat," she said, holding up both ends in her bloody hands. "Oh," said her mother, "is that all? I thought it was something serious."